in two ways. First, we're going to take a look at it from the student experience in a very abbreviated fashion, and then we're going to take a look at it from the administrative experience. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and go here into my student portal. Now, for those of you that may have seen, some of these solutions in the past, what you're going to be able to see here is that this looks very similar to what Student Financial Planning's portal looks like, but there's a key difference. Up here, you may notice that there isn't a section for finances. There isn't a section for, going ahead and, responding to your aid. You're just brought in, and the student is seeing, again, in a very easy fashion, what they need to do to become eligible for financial aid. In this case, the student needs to go ahead and submit a particular document, typically, a verification worksheet. And again, for a student that might be a first-generation college student like Sam, or somebody not familiar with it, Student Financial Planning will outline exactly what verification is and why they were selected. If they go in to submit the document, it'll tell them if all of their information matches, which would eliminate the need for them to fill out anything at all. But just to show you what the system would allow, they can come in here, they can provide for the household information, and then they can go ahead and enter what they need to for the college or university. Down at the bottom, this is an example of our smart form technology. So if they haven't used the data retrieval tool, it'll explain what it is, where to use it, and maybe why they should think about using it. But if they've already done the data retrieval tool, it's simply going to say, all right, we don't need to inundate you with that information. You're good to go. They can come down to the bottom. They can do an electronic signature, and then they can go ahead and fill it out. Everything's good. The system will take a moment. It'll go ahead and process and upload it. The document has been sent, and therefore that particular step has gone ahead and been completed. All right. Now, as I said before, one of the other things that you can do in student aid eligibility is, use document processing. So if there's some other portion of the aid application process that you want a student to use, perhaps you want to give them the ability to go ahead and submit some sort of scholarship form. And I'm picking the absolute simplest example of a scholarship form here. You can go ahead, have them select that, upload it, and now they've responded to the document that you've requested. They've sent the form in. Everything is good. If we had a little bit more time, I would show you some additional examples that they could do for maybe a V4 or V5 verification, or some of the other things that you can do in document processing in terms of having, attachments submitted for images, forms, things like that. The important thing here is that this is a very simple and straightforward way for the students to go through their eligibility steps. It'll go ahead and remind them of anything that they still might need to do. In fact, already thinking about next year's FAFSA. And it gives them a place where they can go ahead and see any sort of communications that have been sent to them within the portal. Now, again, they don't need to go into the portal to see the communications. You'll send those via email, via text, maybe even via letter in some cases. But here in their portal, they can go ahead and see all that information. But from the student perspective, in student financial planning, they are now done. They've taken care of the documentation they need to turn in. They've given you some additional documents. They are ready to go ahead and move on. Now, what would happen from an administrative perspective? All right, and I'm going to go ahead and log in as a student aid eligibility administrator. As a student aid eligibility administrator, I can come in here. I can go ahead and see, my navigation. I'm brought into my dashboard. But what you'll notice compared to some of the things that you're going to see a little bit later with student financial planning, there's a lot less, workflows here. And that is because these are the work task queues that are focused on things like verification. So for instance, if the student had sent in some pending corrections that didn't pass the automatic auto clearing logic, they could come in here, they could go ahead and review the information, they could see what the discrepancies are, and then figure out what they want to do. Complete it, clear it, make the corrections themselves, send it back to the student. They could go ahead and decide what they need to do. If they sent a document that requires some sort of manual review, they can claim additional tasks. We can see here that we have, for this particular student that we just submitted, They have a scholarship application. I can review it, go through my offline procedure, complete it, approve it, and then it's done. It's off my workflow queue. All of this is absolutely identical to what happens now in student financial planning. It's just the student aid eligibility license is a slightly smaller subset of the functionality. All right. So with all this in mind, this is the totality of the student aid eligibility experience. It's a portal for the students to respond to or turn in documentations that they need. It's an administrative view for you guys, where you're going to be able to take a look at things like ICERs that require manual verification, take a look at documents and go ahead and approve them. And then once all of this is done, it'll go ahead and send this information into your student information system, presumably, PeopleSoft Campus Solutions, but potentially other systems as well. All right. So now if we go back and take a look at our PowerPoint here, we can now go ahead and transition on to the broader, piece of financial aid functionality that we have, and that is Oracle Student Financial Planning. All right. So student financial planning, again, many of you probably have some experience with this. Some of you may not, but we'll start again with the basics. What is it? What are some of the reasons that you should think about using it? And then a demonstration. Okay. So what is student financial planning? Well, it's a lot of the stuff that you've already seen. It contains the ability to, apply for aid, handle verification, but it also now begins to expand. It does things like monitor student eligibility. It's out of the box automation is going to check your students for the financial aid they're eligible for. It's going to go ahead and package them based upon that information. And then it's going to go ahead and notify them via an awarding process, provide an online financial aid award notice. It'll go ahead and maintain satisfactory academic progress. It'll manage your disbursements. And then it as well comes with the package of regulatory compliance and analytics, along with the ability to go ahead and create those tools on your own. All right. So with that in mind, that's the what. What are the whys? Well, student financial planning allows you to do three very important things. It allows you to engage more effectively with your learners or potential learners. It's going to allow you to process financial aid more effectively. And then finally, it's going to allow you to plan more accurately. All right. So how does it do this? How are we going to experience this? We're going to take a look at student financial planning in sort of three slices. Again, we're going to do a very abbreviated version of the student experience. Then we're going to go ahead and take a look at the administrative aspects of student financial planning. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the sort of institutional experience regarding technology, configuration, and analytics. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and pop back to our portal. All right. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to sign out as the student that I was logged in as, and I'm going to come in as a new student. Now, if this was a production system, I wouldn't need to be logging in individually as a student. Student financial planning and student aid eligibility support single sign-on. So once a student logs into their self-service, they would be brought in here seamlessly. Now, for my particular student financial planning demo student, they also need to go ahead and respond to their ICER. So again, we'll go ahead in here and do a very abbreviated version of this, since you just saw this in student aid eligibility. Go through. I'm going to turn in my form, and then I'm going to go in and do my electronic signature. My typing is always the slowest part of these presentations. Okay. All right. So we've gone in. The verification worksheet has been turned in. If I'm the student, I can go back to my home page. I can wait a couple minutes, or more likely I can just go ahead and hit the refresh button. And what it'll see is it will give the system a moment to go ahead and, accept that, and then recalculate the award. So we'll give it a few clicks. We all know that hitting the refresh button will make the system work faster. So we can give that a try. And there we go. All right. So in the couple of seconds that we were hitting refresh, we can see that the system has accepted the verification document, it's applied its auto-clearing logic, and it's gone ahead and it's repackaged the student. Now, again, for a student like Sam, first-generation college student, first-generation financial aid recipient, this is all very plain spoken, natural language. I took care of my eligibility. Now I need to do some things to to accept my awards. And there may be some things that I need to do to actually get my money. For the award acceptance step, it's point and click. I can come in here. I can see all the awards that the system has automatically packaged me for. Scholarships and grants are automatically accepted. And then if I decide that I need to borrow loans, I can go ahead and click loan acceptance. Now, again, this is one of the great benefits to students of student financial planning, is that we make things very easy, but not too easy. So what do I mean by that? If I needed any money to cover my tuition and fees, easy. Click a button and it's done. If I've been reading the news and have heard all the horror stories about student loan debt and some of the impacts that that can have on post-graduation life and decide, nope, not for me, easy. There's a button to decline all their loans. But most students are going to fall somewhere in the middle. And so we make it easy, but not too easy. If they want another amount, they can come in here and, we don't say, give me all the loans, although they can go ahead and type that in rather easily, but not $1 more. But what we're hoping that they're going to do is use some of the tools that we provide them, which is a calculator here. So instead of just taking $9,000 in loans, we hope they're going to go and say, well, looks like my tuition fees are covered via my grants and scholarships. Maybe I'm going to need some money for books, digital materials, supplies, things like that. Okay. And then, what, my living situation is okay at the moment. I'm, working so I can cover my rent, but, maybe I'm going to need to take a few less hours. So I want to borrow some money to make sure that I can focus on my learning and not, just have to, be always worrying about the rent check. And then I have a roommate, and while I love them to death, they can be a little bit noisy. So maybe I want to budget a little bit for, being able to get on campus, off to the library, off to the student union, someplace quiet I can study. So instead of just taking out, $9,000 per year, they only need to take out in loans $4,000 per year. So over a 4-year degree, that's 5,000 times 4, $20,000 saved. For a 2-year degree, $10,000 saved. And that's $10,000 saved without additional scholarships, without additional institutional resources. It's simply by giving them a tool to better understand what they need to borrow, as opposed to just saying, I don't know, let's take it all. So if everything looks good, they can go ahead and hit continue. Now there's multiple ways they can go back and adjust funding. We can go ahead and punch out to, other systems like studentaid.gov. If they have questions about borrowing or want to handle entrance counseling, they can go and adjust it if they need to. But if everything's looking okay, they can come through here, they can hit continue. They'll be brought to a copy of their financial aid award notice. Once more, they can go ahead and do an electronic signature. Go ahead and complete that. And then once they're done, they're done. If they wanted to get a completely clean board here, this is the return of Title IV funds waiver. They can go ahead, fill that out. Once again, an electronic signature to make sure that they're going to go ahead and they are who they say they are. And so now, whereas before we had multiple steps that they need to go through, a couple of minutes of real time, and it's a clean board. They've taken care of their eligibility. They've accepted their awards. They've cleared their authorizations, and there isn't anything that they need to do right at the moment to receive funds. If they want to go to the financial tab, remember, this is a tab that wasn't here for student aid eligibility. It's only part of the complete student financial planning offering. They can now see again a 1, 2, 3. What is it going to cost, including their college financing plan detail? What am I going to get, including both, loans, scholarships, grants, institutional, state, and federal awards? Any sort of verbiage that you would want to expose to them in terms of how much funds they have, patterns for usage. And then finally, at the bottom, a breakdown of when they are supposed to receive their funds that should reduce their anxiety about, when the money is actually going to arrive for things like rent, books, other expenses. All right. Now, there's a couple other things that they can do here, in the profile section. If this was a dependent student, we can sign the FERPA release and give the parents access, and that will go ahead and facilitate doing a dependent verification. If they're an independent student and they're married and they want to give spouse, children, friends, trusted advisor, whomever access, all of that proxy access can be managed right here from within inside the portal. Last thing that I want to kind of call attention to on the portal is that if you're an administrator and you're seeking to help a student with their portal and they come to you and say, hey, I see something on my portal that doesn't make sense. Can you go ahead and explain it to me? You can log in here as an administrator, go ahead and enter in the student ID number of the student in question. And then if they have a question like, hey, I turned in my FAFSA, I see duplicate rows and one's complete and one's not. Now you as an administrator can go in, you could look at these and you can say, oh, no, I understand where you're coming from. This is just a reminder that this is the FAFSA for this year that you've completed. The row that is showing as pending is the FAFSA for next year, which, can you believe it, it's already time to go ahead and fill that in. And so this allows you as an administrator to kind of see what the student is seeing on a one-to-one basis, be able to explain notifications, go through their financial information, and to give them, all the, service that they need in order to very quickly and easily navigate the financial aid process on their end. Okay. So, as much as I would like you to, don't take our word for it. You've already heard from Sam. This is one of his classmates' tests. Tests illustrates exactly the things that we were trying to stress here. It's streamlined, it's comprehensible, she knows what she's filling out, and she's going to be able to kind of replicate that process throughout her entirety of her time at Butler. She, like Sam, is a recent graduate that was able to use this to more easily navigate the financial aid process. So again, why student financial planning? More effective engagement, easy, intuitive presentation of information, real-time updates, and transparent processing for students and for your administrative staff members. Okay, so what's next? Well, let's go ahead and take a look at this from the administrative side. How do we process more efficiently using student financial planning? So I'm going to go ahead and log out as my SAE administrator, and I'm going to log in as my SFP administrator. Now, what you can probably see is that even though the layouts are the same, because it's the same software, the SFP license unlocks a lot more features and a lot more functions within the system. Instead of having 4 task queues, I now have 10 or so out here. And again, by going to any particular task queue, I can go ahead, see the students where I need to do some work on. I can simply click into them, review the information I have, and decide what I need to do. And again, all of these task queues provide specific information to the task at hand. It's not a generic report. If I come into the verification queue, I see verification information. If I am doing something regarding, SAP appeals, I can come in here and I can go ahead and see SAP information. I can see the SAP components. I can see the document that was sent in. If the student had attached a document via their portal, I can point, I can click, and I can go ahead and view whatever it is that they went ahead and turned in to me. All of this means that I can process more efficiently. I've gone to 3 or 4 different students here: a verification student, a student that turned in a document, and a student that was on SAP appeal. Didn't need to use the search once, didn't need to look at a report, look at a post-it, check out an email. All the students that I wanted to take a look at were just there and available for me to use. All right. So at some point, though, you're going to go off of, looking at task queues and evaluating this sort of information to doing things that impact individual students. So let's go ahead and pick up a student use case here. All right. Now, for this particular student, once we pull them up, we're brought into a 360-degree view. I have information here in a single page that is normally in a lot of different pages in traditional financial aid systems. Over on the left, I have items that might be, affecting or required for financial aid: ICERS, SAP, student records, NSLDS. Over on the right, I have tactical items. How many letters have I sent them? Have I made any comments on them? What are the 405 things that have happened to this student? File loads, packaging events, manual interventions that makes their financial aid look the way it does in the middle of the screen. In the middle of the screen, I have a 360-degree view of their financial aid, not just their cost of attendance, amount of funds they have, and any gaps. I can also see the status of their federal disbursements, if the originations are sent to COD, scheduled, if any of the original awards were canceled. But if I go down to the bottom, I have a screen here on eligibility that'll let me know if anything is going on that might be impacting disbursement. Not only do I have this for the current year, but I also have this for the entirety of their degree program. So whether or not you're in a 2-year program, 4-year program, or multi-year program, 5-6 years for some sort of joint program, I can go ahead and I can see the differences between their programs from one year to the next. In year 1 for this particular student, I can see, disbursements are canceled. They don't have any loans. If the student's asking me about their aid for year 3, I can say, hey, good news, you're covered. Looks like you're going to have enough funds to complete your education that year. But it seems like for some reason in year 3, we may wind up having to do some loan borrowing. Is that something that you were aware of? What are your thoughts on this? And we give the administrator the ability to easily figure out why things happened. So if I go into this student, I'm brought into their financial aid packaging screen. And, if I want to know more about their cost of attendance, or their, tuition and fees, point and click. And it's that way all the way down. Do I need enrollment detail? Point and click. Do I need ICER detail? Point and click. Do I want to see their awards? I can come down here and view them at a high level or drill into it, point, click for any sort of detail. More importantly, I have historical versions of the packages where I can go ahead and see how the package has changed over time. So for this particular student, when they initially applied for aid, they didn't have an ICER, so all they got was a scholarship. At some point later, we loaded ICER and NSLDS information, and we packaged them for Title IV aid, including loans. Finally, at some point, a file was loaded, a scholarship request was loaded, and so the student got an additional scholarships for years 1 and 2, which knocked out their loan eligibility. But then in year 3 and 4, looks like it was just a 2-year scholarship. So good news, they're fully funded. Other news, they might need to use loans. But now we can have a conversation with this student 3 years in advance of when they need it in order to go ahead and help them package their aid. Now, I'm not going to have time to go through all the various scenarios or things that student financial planning can do. 2 things that I did just want to call out because I know it's of particular interest to some of the folks in the crowd there was, first, I wanted to show you an example of a student where we've packaged them for aid without an ICER. This is an example of a DREAM Act student for, in this case, a 2-year degree. If we drill in here, we can see that their aid package allows for a rather robust amount of aid, but none of it is federal Title IV aid, although there is some state aid in here. Everything that you need to process a student is in here. COD processing screens, disbursement screens, the ability to do comments, holds, documents, look at student information. From an administrative perspective, the ability to configure the system to natively receive files from your SAIG mailbox, do G5 drawdowns, and manage your ICER loads is all in here. However, I'm getting very close to the amount of time that Nicole requested at the end. So I'm going to say, as usual, again, don't trust us, trust our production customers. This is a chart showing typical processing features within student financial planning and which ones of those would be in SAE, and showing the automation rates we've been able to achieve through 7 different Oracle customers over the time that they've been live with student financial planning. Okay, so again, why student financial planning? More efficient processing, delivered workflows, 360-degree views, and this is going to give you more time to interact with students instead of managing files.